We are joined by Brenda Eubanks Burnette.
Hi.
Brenda has been an author of our Pieces of the Past article, and we're celebrating a decade, I think, this year. So we wanted to welcome you on and just and say we appreciate that. That's one of our more popular articles that run in the magazine,
Well,
just
thanks.
reflecting on the history of citrus in Florida. So we thought you'd have you on and maybe tell us a little bit about some of the favorite stories that you've written in that article over the years.
10 years. I started in 2015, and there's so many different stories that I really just kind of stumble into when I'm doing research on something. So I know you probably think, gosh, it's taking her so long to write these, but I end up going down a rabbit hole for almost every article, and I never know where it's going to end. But some of the stories that I've come across that I thought were interesting or funny are really actually stories about how tough it was back in the day and what some of the growers and the scientists and researchers, the things that they had to go through in terms of making our industry viable. Um, and one of the stories was about some people going through a hurricane down in JB, Florida. I want to say it was the gentleman that Flamingo was involved with Flamingo Gardens. But anyways, he was trying to hold down the clamshell storm shutter and got yanked out of the window. And the other guy that was there with him had to grab him by the leg and draw him back in before he got thrown out. So just some of the things you don't really think about as you're doing these articles. I never thought, but it was a handwritten um, letter that was sent to the Florida Horticultural Society for their proceedings, and I find a lot of information in that group. They've done a really great job of digitizing some of their information, and then things that I've run into. Like one of the articles I did was on Hugh English's family. I just happened to be down there doing an oral history video with Hugh English, and I saw these great photographs on his wall. I said, Hugh, what is this? And he goes, oh, well, that was my grandfather in our packing house. And this is down, I mean, you have to remember, I'm a product of the 80s, basically, in terms of being involved with the citrus industry. And at that point, I thought that citrus had not been grown in Florida south of, Polk County, really, until the freezes hit us in the 80s, and they now started moving down south. But this was along the Caloosahatchee River in the 1800s. And so, just really interesting things like that you find out along the way, and that just never realized. And he was, I don't know if he's fifth generation. I mean, he goes back to the 1800s, and that photograph is in the Florida Memory Project, and his father grandfather H.S. English, I believe it was, is identified in there. Another one is again just talking to people. I think I was talking to Jim Ellis and John Veldhouse, and they were using these terms that I'd never heard of before, um, and like dough balling and gopher hook, and then when they started explaining what some of these meanings were, I did an article out of it. But one of them, they said gopher hook. I said, you mean you put a hook down in these little furry animals' hole and you pull them out by their you hook it around their neck and pull them out? No, honey, a gopher is a tortoise. It's a land tortoise. And so I had no idea. But then they would pull those out of the holes, and they would actually, the pickers would use them for dinner that night. Um, but they needed to get them out of there when they were planting the fields and stuff. And then again, the citrus queens, just going back into some of the history of those ladies was quite interesting. And marketing. Dick Pope was one that I grew up in Winter Haven. I knew Dick Pope, I knew his family, but never realized how involved in the citrus industry he was. And he actually had been hired by the Florida Citrus Commission back in the late 40s to do a pictorial history, not pictorial history, a pictorial promotional program. And he had, I don't know if you've ever seen a lot of the stuff he's done, but he was the guy and the genius responsible for creating these beautiful displays and images using citrus with the southern bells in there. So he would send something out with a big shamrock made of grapefruit and oranges and have the southern bells all around there. He would send that out for St. Patrick's Day. He would do the same something the for Valentine's Day. Any holiday he could come up with, he was going to put citrus and southern bells in that picture, and he would send it out and get uh, some just great exposure for Florida in the citrus industry. I've been trying to get him into the Hall of Fame for several years now and haven't had any luck, but I'm going to keep trying because I think he's definitely worthwhile. He did a lot to promote our image. So, but there's a lot. I mean, you figure over 10 years, that's 120 stories. So, um,
It's a rich history to pull from
it
too.
is.
And speaking of that, in our January issue, you wrote about Dundee Citrus Growers Association, and you gave a great history of their association and just sort of the timeline there. But just talk about how important they are to you and the industry as a whole.
Well, I was looking back and I was just shocked that I hadn't done one on them before because, that's how I got into the industry. I needed money for college and I had, my girlfriend had entered me into the Miss Winter Haven pageant and Jerry Ember was in the crowd that night and I happened to win. And like I said, I don't know who was more surprised, me or my family, but I won the Miss Winter Haven pageant. And with Jerry Ember being there, he was involved with Bob Eastman, who ran the Florida Citrus Showcase, and Jerry was a photographer for Cypress Gardens. So he hooked me up with Bob Eastman because they needed somebody to fill in for the Citrus Queen that week. That was, I think it was like the next week or the week after. And I had my first appearance as Miss Winterhaven was with Bill Rayleigh. My house had caught on fire, and I had to do an appearance that night, and I had no clothes, had to borrow everything. And anyways, Bill and I got to be fast friends, and he was my sponsor in the Florida Citrus Queen pageant, not once but twice, because I didn't place or anything the first time that I did it, but the second time I'd been fired from my job for getting in there, so I guess I had more reason to win. And so I didn't get it till the second year, but in 1981 I was the Citrus Queen, and they, he sponsored me both years, despite me forgetting their name on stage the first time I did it. So Bill was a very important part for me, and that's pretty much opened the door for me in the industry because I didn't have a family in the industry at all. And really, the only thing I know about it was my brother going out to fire the groves during cold spells. And my dad sold some real estate and did a few groves here and there. So I wasn't involved in the industry. And so when I looked back at the history for Dundee, it was just interesting because, again, growing up in Winter Haven, they were always there. And the fact that they've been able to weather the storm and basically they've consolidated five, I think, packing houses that are now on, that now ship all their fruit through Dundee, and they've just been an amazing um, programs like the Cups program and some of the marketing that they've done, and it's just amazing that they've been able to stay relevant and to keep working outside the box, looking outside the box for ways to keep their programs viable in today's market. So I'm over 100 years. It's pretty impressive.
It is impressive. It is impressive. And finally, you've been a steward of the Citrus Hall of Fame for many years, and now I know you retired at I guess, the first of the year, and now you've been inducted into the Hall of Fame. So that's a great honor, and I know everyone's excited to welcome you into the hall for all that you've done for it and capturing the history of Florida and everything else. So congratulations on that.
Well,
We'll
thank
have
you.
you. We'll, yeah, go ahead.
As that was a big surprise. I had no idea I'd even been nominated for it. Nobody told me, and I had breakfast with two of the people in that were on the committee, and they had asked me if I had any suggestions for picking somebody, and I made some flippant remark, not knowing that I was even even nominated. But I just said, oh well, I won't even go to what I said. But then I get a call from Brantley Sherrard, who he and his daughter Lori had been people nominated me, and I was just shocked. I was in a gas station in St. Augustine. Um, I think we were doing oral history videos or on the way to doing something like that, and I picked up the phone, and it was Brantley, and he said, "Honey, I just want to be the first to tell you." And I started crying right there in the gas station. So it was pretty funny. But I'm very appreciative. Would never have thought about that, but I'm just glad that it's been a very good ride for me, and I'm glad I've been able to contribute back something.
Right. Well, I know that official induction is in March at the luncheon at the Hall of Fame
Yes.
luncheon, so I'll be there for sure to cheer you on, and I know a lot of other industry folks will be there, and we'll have you back on to talk a little bit more about that maybe after the ceremony. But we just
Yes.
wanted to thank you for all you've done over the past decade and beyond to capture the history of Florida citrus.
Thank you. I'm still doing it. I'm actually president of the Indian River Citrus Museum here in Vero Beach, and we've been doing some things there and continuing the citrus crate label trail throughout the state. So I might be retired, but I'm just not getting. I'm still doing work, but not getting paid. So, but it's always been, the industry's close to my heart. Can't see me moving or staying still for long. So I'm happy to be able to contribute, like I said, and it's a big citrus family to me, and I'm very appreciative of everything that I've been blessed with along the way. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Okay, take care, Frank.